Welcome back to the channel, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the same part that we did in 2D, except we're going to draw it in AutoCAD 3D. Alright, so let's jump over to AutoCAD and go ahead and get started. So before I get started, thank you for all the people that are subscribing. The channel has grown and I think it reached the monetized stage. I don't quite know what that means yet, but I know it has some communities and other things. So I do appreciate all of you for, coming back to this channel and watching these videos. That's a special thanks to you. So I really do appreciate it, and thanks for helping me out in that matter. As far as this drawing go, if you take a look at the drawing that we did using AutoCAD 2D, we drew it using standard method of putting a title block on. Now, by default, when we use the 3D method, we're going to be forced to use that paper space, mainly because we have to go and select on the base icon. So, anytime you're using AutoCAD 3D, you're kind of forced to go that direction, right? There is another way that I can do it, and I know I did it in another video where you can actually dimension these 3D parts. And I may save that one for when I get through kind of completing these little series of these videos. So I may actually do that when I actually dimension the 3D part, and then we'll put that on the drawing. But that's also going to be done, if I'm not mistaken, either using the paper space, or I think I may be able to get away with the annotation scale, right? So I'll figure that out once we get to it. All right, so now let's jump over to AutoCAD and go ahead and get started on this one. The modeling of this one shouldn't take us that long. It's, a simple L piece here, so we should be able to knock this out fairly quickly. All right, so let's go ahead and do our normal stuff we usually do. I like to turn the grid off. There's no need for me to have that on. I do work with my ortho on. Here is going to be the typical running O-snaps that I will have turned on. And since we're doing 3D AutoCAD, I'll go ahead and switch over by selecting this little icon here. And then I'll go to 3D modeling, right? So once that switches over, we should have a new ribbon at the top, and we should usually get a dialog box that appears here. Maybe it won't this time, who knows? But, okay. Let's start off just by making an L shape, right? So we want to keep in mind that we're creating this three-dimensional part here, and depending on how you're looking at the isometric, either the left, top, or right, we can just start modeling this now, and then we'll put it next to what our actually drawing is, and then we'll kind of orient it to that direction. All right, so let's go ahead and start with just a regular line here, and I can use a polyline. Either one of them will work, but we'll just use a regular line command here. Okay, so we'll go with a line. I'm going to click here. We're going to go straight down a distance of 75. Now usually it runs off of my screen here. I'll go ahead and hit escape, then I'll zoom the extents. Then I'll zoom out a little bit. Okay, let's continue back with the line command here. So back to the line, go this direction, a distance of 75. Let's go up a height of 10. We're going to go back here to the left. Now remember, this line is at 75, but we do have to subtract that 20 off of it. So 75 minus our 20 should give us 55. Then we're going to go up, and we're going to go ahead and create this stair step effect in here, right? So without me explaining the math, this number here was going to be 40. Go ahead and hit enter there. Go over a height of 10. And then we can go up the rest of it, which should be 25. And then we can go to that endpoint. Remember that I can't use the close function because I broke this line right here in the beginning of it. All right. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and select all of this, and I'm going to join it together. The way that we do that, we can click here in the drop down of the modify, and then we can click on the join icon, or you can just simply select everything and hit J, enter. Right, that's the quick way. Now you want to make sure you read here on your command line that it did convert it into one polyline. All right, so we have that part done. I'm going to go ahead and create my cylinders because that's going to be the only two things that I'm going to need. So I'm just going to draw a couple of circles here. I'll use a circle center diameter. I'll click here, kind of give myself a little preview of it. And this circle has a diameter of 25. Now I'm just going to make a copy of this one. There's no need to kind of draw it again. And select a base point and put it here. This should be everything I need to create this drawing now. So I'm just going to switch it over to an isometric view. We're going to simply do an extrude command. I'll go ahead and select this shape here, hit enter. Then I'm going to go up a distance of 50. All right, so there's my first shape. Now with these two shapes here, it really doesn't matter as long as they're longer than, and I would say both of them need to be longer than a distance of 20. So I could have extruded both of those when I extruded this one, but I'll just give it a different number here. So I'm going to extrude both of these. Let's make the number 30. All right, I'm going to rotate this around. Let's take a look at this. And then we're going to change the shading of this one so I can see kind of what's happening a little bit more. So I'm going to select here where it says 2D wireframe. And then what I usually like to do is work in shades of gray for a little bit. So when I change it to shades of gray, you can see that it changes colors, and I can see what's solid and I can see what's not solid. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to stand this up. So you'll notice that I have the front icon here, and I'm going to go ahead and put the drawing up here in a second so we can kind of compare both of these to what it looks like. Now what I'm referring to is that you see that this shape is an isometric, right? And this shape is an isometric, right? And I'm looking at the view cube here. Remember that in that previous video we discussed which one was the front view, the right side view, and the top view. Well, the goal here is to get this part oriented in this way so when I get to doing the drafting part of this one, the views will automatically be oriented the correct way. So therefore, I'm just going to rotate this and stand it up, and then we should be good to go. So here on my gizmo, make sure it's set to rotate gizmo. And the second thing that you need to know that if you're going to use any one of these gizmos is that first we're going to select the gizmo that we want. And the next thing is that I have to be in any of these other ones except for 2D wireframe. If you are in 2D wireframe, gizmos will not work. Okay. Rotate gizmo is active. Go ahead and select. Then I'm just going to select this red axis here. And then I'm going to simply stand this part up. So I'm just going to go straight up in the air, do a left click here, hit escape. And now I can take a look at my part. It's in the correct orientation. Let's go ahead and put these fillets on here just so we can automatically define our centers. The way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to use a fillet. I'm going to click underneath the solid tab here, and then I'll go and find fillet edge. Now it's going to ask me, hey, select the edge or the fillet or the point that I want to fillet. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to select radius first, and then I have to define the radius. Once again, all of this stuff was discussed in that previous video, but it's going to be 25 is our radius. Next, I'm going to select this edge, this one here on the top, as well as this one here. So once you're done selecting all those edges, go ahead and hit enter. It asks you, hey, is that what you want to see? Then hit enter one more time, and it should accept it. Okay, now I'm ready to drill these cylinders in here. So the first cylinder, I'm just going to simply get this one, and I'll use the regular move command, right? So I'm going to select move. I'm going to go to the center of this one. So I'm just looking for that little center point here. I'll click here, and then I'm coming straight down here to find the center, which is located at that point. Okay, so I'll leave this cylinder here. I like to do both of my subtracts in one. For the next one, I have to rotate this cylinder here in order to get it to be in the correct orientation. So once again, my rotate gizmo is activated. I will select here. Then I'm going to select the green axis here, stand it up, go to the move command, find the center that's located in the back of this one, and then I'm going to go to the center that's back here. Now you can see that if I kind of move my mouse down here, sometimes it might be hard to select that center. One of those shortcuts for you is if you hold down the shift button and do a right click and then select center, it's only going to pick a center. So all I have to do now is come to this edge, do a left click, and it should automatically jump there. Let's use the subtract command, which is located here. First thing we need to do is select the object I want to keep, hit enter. And then we're going to select the objects that we want to subtract, which is going to be these two cylinders. So I'll select that cylinder there, and then this cylinder, hit enter, and then our part is complete, right? So like I said, the modeling of this one should not take us that long at all. Next, let's go ahead and jump into the drafting portion of it, or putting a title block around it. Now what I said in the beginning is that typically, anytime you're doing any kind of drafting here, we're going to be stuck with using the paper space. So I'm just going to jump over to the Layout tab. Once I do this, I'm going to go ahead and delete this viewport. And then I'm going to create a title block. Simply just use the rectangle command, REC, or you can select it here at the top. I'm going to type in 0, 0, enter, and then I'll type in 17, 11. I zoom out, do an offset, so just O enter, 0.25 enter, select your title block here, and then click to the inside. Okay, so here's my title block. Here's my paper that is representing my title block. Well, I like these two to match. It's kind of one of my OCD things that kind of everybody has. So I'm just going to come here to Layout 1, do a right click on it, and then I'm going to go up to Page Setup Manager. Once I'm in the Page Setup Manager, I'm waiting on the dialog box to appear. I'm going to go to Modify. And then what I like to do is I usually use the DWG to PDF, since that has all of the paper sizes that I'll need inside of it. I'm going to go with an ANSI, since I defined it by a ANSI or a imperial kind of title block here. It's going to be a B size, because that's what the dimensions are for, a B size, 17 by 11, and I always like to select the full bleed. Underneath what I want to plot, I'm just going to select this drop down, and I do like to use window sometimes, so I'm going to use window in this case. And what I do is I usually pick the opposite corners of the inside rectangle, right? So I'm going to select that endpoint to that endpoint. Okay, so once I've done that, I'm just going to tell it, hey, go ahead and center this, and then I'm going to leave this set to 1 to 1. And just for future references, or if I do decide to print this, I usually like to come here and tell it to be monochrome, right? I'll go ahead and hit the OK button, and then I'll hit close, and now you can see that my title block is the exact same size as that white paper that was there. Okay, now the reason why I have to use this paper space is because this is the only way I can kind of see my model from the back. Now there is another way I can do that. I can actually cut a viewport through this, and we could take a look at seeing that. If I go to the Layout tab here, and then I use my special pair of scissors here, which is just going to be a rectangle. If I cut a rectangle through here, you will see that my model that I have behind it will show through. These are nothing more than just viewports. And I can do another video where I'm actually dimensioning this using the viewports, right? So we have multiple different ways of doing this, but by far the easiest way would just be to use the base option here. So I'm going to select this and hit delete. I'll go to base, tell it go from model space. I'm going to give it a second or two. It's going to look for it behind it. I'm going to go ahead and click here for my front view. Hit enter. I'm going to come up. Here's my top view. I'm just going to do a left click here. And I'm going to come this way and do my right side view. Do a left click here. And then I'm also going to create my isometric here in the corner. So I'm going to drag it diagonally. Do a left click here. Hit enter. And it should automatically create all those views as well as your hidden lines and things of that nature. Now my isometric, I will do something different with it. I'm going to select here. I'll go to edit view. And then I have the option of telling it how I want this to look. So I want the visible lines gone. And if I want it to look like what I drew in that 2D one, I can just tell it, hey, only show me the visible lines. And if I hit OK on that, it's going to create it exactly like what we did when we did that in the 2D. If you don't want this to show, I can also have this show more like a metal view. And what I'm going to do is select here, and then I'll tell it shade it with visible edges. And I'll hit OK. And now you have more of a, I guess, a metal look to it. And by the way, AutoCAD does have some materials or metals automatically included in this. So if I wanted to make this gold or some of that nature, you can assign a material to this and then it will be gold, right? Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my center marks and center lines on to this drawing, right? And the way that we do that is if we go to annotate. Now, I haven't created any center layers or things of that nature, and like I said, if you want to go back and watch, and I hate to keep referring to this, and I sound like I said it about 10 times in this video, but you can go back and refer to that one where I create layers and all of that other stuff. But for this one, I'm just going to keep it simple and short as I possibly can because the other video was over an hour long, so I don't want to kind of torture you again with that. So if I use a regular center mark, now remember the extensions on these by default is what, 0.18? So I'm just going to go center mark, and then I'm going to take a look and see if that's exactly right. Once I select here, you can see that it does hang over, and in my world, that's enough for me, right? I'll go ahead and put one on this one as well. So I have my 2 center marks on here. Let's go ahead and define some center lines. And all I'm going to do is select these 2 hidden lines, right? So here and here. I'll just hit the enter button. I'm going to go ahead and click on here. I'm just kind of walking my way, and I'm just hitting the enter button to repeat the last command, just so I can speed this up a little bit. Okay, so now that I have all these little center marks on here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select each one of these little center marks. And the reason I'm doing this is because they're not actually showing up. Let me skip that one since it's not acting like it wants me to select it. There it is. I'll do a right click, go down to properties. When your property window appears, I want you to go ahead and change the line type scale. And let's see what 0.5 looks like. And I'm going to zoom into this. And it does give me that gap that I've been looking for. So if that's the case, go ahead and hit the escape button here. And it should have that little gap in there. Now you can choose to connect these or not. I'm just going to leave them the way that they are. All right, so let's go ahead and put some dimensions on this. Easiest way, we're going to set up our dimension style. I'm just going to select this little arrow here. And then let's go ahead and get rid of my properties box over here. There's no need for this anymore. Oh, it looks like I can't do it while this is open. I'll fix it right after I get through with the dimension style. Now here's where I have to decide annotation or standard. Remember that anytime we're using paper space, both of these, it doesn't matter because the scale factor is going to be 1:1. So I'm just going to use the standard method. We'll go to modify. Once the dialog box appears, I always work from, this right tab here. Underneath my primary units, let's go ahead and get rid of those trailing zeros. Underneath the fit, leave this set to 1. So no matter which method that you're using, as long as you leave it set to 1, you'll be okay. Text height, let's go ahead and make this 0.125. Underneath the symbols and arrows, we're just going to change this to none. And then underneath my lines here, I'm going to go ahead and make this 0.125. I like the extensions to be the exact same height as my text. Go ahead and hit OK. And then close this. And then I'll go ahead and close my property window that's sitting over here. Okay. Let's go ahead and put some basic dimensions on this. So I'll just use a linear dimension. Let's click from this endpoint to here. It does give me that overall. I'll hit enter and let's put a dimension over here to get to that circle there. Now, I want you to notice one thing about these two. If I have this dimension and this dimension, technically I can figure out this dimension without having to give you, basically, I should be able to figure out, this dimension without having to give you this, right? Because I do know the radius of this, and I do have this length. So that radius plus that should equal that. But I'm going to leave it on there just for drawing purposes. Let's go ahead and put a couple of more dimensions on here. Let's work with this view here. So let's go ahead and put these points here. I'm just going to hit the enter button just to save me some time here and kind of speed this drawing up a little bit. As I said, I don't want to kind of bore you all day with another super long drawing here. Let's go ahead and do this dimension, and I'm just once again hitting the enter button on my keyboard just so I can kind of do all of these. Now here for the inside, I will go ahead and put a dimension from here to here, just to give somebody a kind of point of reference. Okay, let's work up here on the top view. Let's do a dimension. And I think I do have this dimension already, but if I don't, it should be okay. Let's go ahead and put a couple of more dimensions on here. So I'll put a dimension from here to here. as well as from here to here. And we also like to generally have a dimension from here to here. Now sometimes you will get these red boxes to appear, and all this is saying is that I really didn't select the endpoint that I needed. And there's a command called, if I'm not mistaken, it's called Anno Monitor, if you want to turn those things off. It's just one of those checks and balances things. I can delete this, and then if I come in and actually draw that dimension correctly, it shouldn't give me that. So if I go that endpoint and this endpoint, I should be okay. You got to be kind of careful if you select like nodes or some of that nature. It will give you those errors and things of that nature. All right, let's go ahead and put a couple of radial dimension on here. So let's go to the radius, and we do have a radius dimension here along the top. Let's just go ahead and hit the enter button. We have one here. And then finally, we do have a couple of diameter dimensions. Let's just go ahead and click here. Enter one more time and select here. Okay, so that should be everything that we need to create here. So if I was fabricating this is kind of all the stuff that I would like to see. All right, so once again, I do appreciate you hanging with me, watching all of these videos, and it really shows that, you know, I'm not the only one out here that likes AutoCAD or any of these drafting programs, right? I did get a comment about someone telling me about Solid Edge, which is another neat program. I don't have a license for it, and I'm actually pretty good at using the 3D one of that one, which is NX, but I don't have a license for it. I wish I did, or if I do ever come across a license for that, I will add some of those videos for people who are interested in that. And if you are interested in that, go ahead and leave me a comment, and I'll see what I can do if I can kind of find a license for that, or maybe contact Siemens and see if they'll be willing to, you know, let me use a program just to show some instructional videos. Okay, but once again, I can't say it enough. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for, you know, helping this channel do grow, and thank you for subscribing and liking to these videos, as I really do appreciate it. I do have some stuff coming up now that YouTube is giving me some more options here. So I will try to start a community thing. I think I got a course that I'm trying to have come up in the future, and I am working on a book and some other things. So if that's some stuff that you may be interested in, just stay tuned to the channel, or you might want to consider subscribing for when those things do come out, or I give you more information. Okay, so that's going to be the last thing I'll say for the night. I want to thank you, and thank you. I really do appreciate it. Have a good evening, or good morning if you're watching this.